Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something really fascinating, a rapidly evolving, truly multifaceted relationship between two major players in the global south, India and Tanzania. And listen, this isn't just about your standard diplomatic handshakes. We're talking about a highly dynamic partnership that is fundamentally reshaping education, trade, and even maritime security all across the Indian Ocean. To get us started, what connects a tech hub in Chennai to an island in East Africa? I know, it sounds kind of like the setup to a riddle, right? But it's actually the foundation of a surprising and deeply intimate geopolitical link between India and the Tanzanian archipelago of Zanzibar. You know, the emotional core of this whole relationship was captured just perfectly during a July 2026 state visit to India. Zanzibar's president, Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, put it like this: "Knowledge should know no borders, and excellence should never be confined by geography." And the thing is, he wasn't just speaking in abstract terms there. He was celebrating a very real, very physical manifestation of that exact ideal.
Section 1. An unprecedented overseas campus.
This brings us to our first micro-story, the intellectual anchor of this geopolitical shift, and this brilliantly illustrates a massive historical shift. Think about it. Back in the 1950s, when the Indian Institutes of Technology, or IITs, were first being built in places like Kharagpur and Kanpur, they relied really heavily on Western tutelage just to build up domestic capability. But to flash forward to the 2020s, today, IIT Madras is actually mentoring Zanzibar. They've established a deterritorialized Indian institute directly in East Africa. It remains fundamentally Indian, but it's projecting this incredible educational soft power and sharing its own success story right there with the continent.
This academic integration is so critical that in July 2026, President Mwinyi actually traveled to Chennai to attend the 63rd IIT Madras convocation as the chief guest. This ties directly into Zanzibar's Vision 2050, which is this huge strategic goal to create highly skilled labor capable of transforming the economy of the entire East African region. They are literally training the next generation of innovators together.
Section 2. Crossing $9 billion. Now we're going to zoom out from the intimacy of the classroom to the massive macroeconomic reality driving this cultural exchange. Okay, let's dive into this staggering figure, $9.02 billion. That represents the total bilateral merchandise trade volume reached between India and Tanzania in the 2025-2026 fiscal year. I mean, that is a massive economic footprint, making Tanzania one of India's absolutely most vital partners in Africa. Take a look right here to see the steady, consistent growth trajectory we're talking about. Trade rose from $8.64 billion in 2024-25, straight up to that $9.02 billion mark. This data was heavily reviewed at the 5th Joint Trade Committee meeting held recently in Dar es Salaam, where leaders from both nations reaffirmed their commitment to pushing these numbers even higher.
But what exactly makes up a massive trade relationship like that? Well, as outlined from those April 2026 meetings, the breadth of sectors is just incredibly expansive. They're actively negotiating trade settlements in local currencies to bypass traditional global financial bottlenecks. They're collaborating on pharmaceutical regulations, expanding port infrastructure and shipbuilding, adding value to gemstone mining, and deeply integrating agriculture through contract farming. It's a comprehensive, top-to-bottom economic alliance.
Section 3. Tech, digital, and healthcare.
Moving way beyond physical goods, it's vital to see how this partnership is heavily leaning into digital diplomacy and public welfare. This maps out the modern infrastructure of this partnership. Under the digital sector, India is exporting public goods, things like the India Stack, its unified software platform, and DigiLocker, bringing real-time payments and digital services straight to Tanzania. Over in healthcare, they're collaborating on telemedicine to reach remote Tanzanian areas and building up real capacity in oncology. And looking at the agriculture and marine sectors, we see shared initiatives in sustainable aquaculture and a joint commitment to the Global Biofuel Alliance.
So, the crucial point is this massive $1.1 billion line of credit. In the whole development cooperation space, Tanzania is actually India's biggest partner, and this massive sum is dedicated exclusively to a very specific, life-changing initiative.
That $1.1 billion, it's currently funding Tanzanian water infrastructure projects that bring clean, reliable water to over 6 million people across 24 different towns. It perfectly grounds those huge, abstract financial numbers into a tangible, human reality, showing the direct developmental impact of India's infrastructural investment in the region.
Section 4. Maritime security and SAGAR.
Let's expand our lens even further to the physical realities of the Indian Ocean and the mutual defense interests shared by these two maritime neighbors.
You'll frequently hear the term SAGAR in India's foreign policy. It stands for Security and Growth for All in the region. It is essentially India's strategic vision for the Indian Ocean, and Tanzania, with its vast coastline, fits perfectly into this framework. Their geographic reality absolutely necessitates a shared approach to keeping the waters safe and prosperous.
This mutual security alignment has officially elevated their relationship to a strategic partnership. Their shared maritime priorities include strict control over piracy and drug trafficking, ensuring that global commercial shipping lines remain totally free from interference, and advancing the blue economy for sustainable ocean-based economic growth. They've even signed specific memorandums to share wide shipping information, literally linking their maritime intelligence networks.
Section 5. Blueprint for the Global South.
When we look at all these elements combined, the education, the trade, the infrastructure, the security, what we are really looking at is a blueprint for the Global South. Notice how this builds across a very rapid timeline here. This isn't some slow, decades-long progression. It is accelerating incredibly fast. In October 2023, the IIT Zanzibar campus opened, and Tanzania joined the Global Biofuel Alliance. By April 2026, bilateral trade crossed that historic $9 billion mark at the 5th Joint Trade Committee. And just a few months later, in July 2026, President Mwinyi is in New Delhi, finalizing even more pacts across AI, digital architecture, and higher education.
Reflecting on those July 2026 diplomatic meetings in New Delhi, India's Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan noted that this is a special relationship rooted in centuries-old maritime, cultural, and people-to-people ties. It's just a really powerful reminder that while the technology and the trade figures are super modern, they are ultimately built on a very deep historical foundation of an equitable global South partnership.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to consider. As nations in the Global South increasingly trade, train, and secure their borders together, bypassing a lot of the traditional Western institutions, who will write the rules of the next global economy? The India-Tanzania partnership suggests a future that is multipolar, highly collaborative, and incredibly dynamic. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning how our world is being reshaped.